Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to talk about is the Ken Burns effect. And in the lecture about documentary, I talk about Ken Burns effect. And Ken Burns is named for the documentary filmmaker Ken Burns, um, who gets credit for this effect. And what it is, it's using still images or archival material and doing a slow uh, zoom and pan across that image. For those of you who have that have worked with iMovie, you will probably recognize the Ken Burns effect. That anytime you drop in still images inside of iMovie, it automatically applies the Ken Burns effect, which is that slow zoom and pan effect across the still images. That it makes them a little bit more dynamic visually and a little bit more of a visual interest versus just the static image being on screen the same position the entire time. So we're actually going to learn how to do this inside of Premiere, that it's not an automatic thing, that we have more control about this. So we're going to learn how to do this effect. And again, refer back to the lectures if you need to. You'll see some examples of the Ken Burns effect. That he's really famous for his some of the more recent ones. I believe he did a Vietnam documentary, a Civil War documentary, and one on baseball. So really, like, he's America's documentarian, and so he gets credit for the name of this effect. So what I've done here is I've just laid in some still images on the timeline, just as easy as drag and drop them onto the timeline. And so I've already done that for you here for these 5. And we're going to take a look at these. So I'm going to double click on the still image. So this is the full image, and this is our timeline and our project of what we actually see. So what's happening here is the image, the resolution of the image is larger than our sequence. And so there are more pixels across, up and down and across in this image than are able to be shown in our timeline in our frame. Because remember, this is 1280 by 720 pixels. And so let's flip here to the information, the list view, and I'm going to hit tilde to make this larger. And we can see here the resolution of some of these images. So these are all larger than 1280 by 720. So we're going to have to scale each one of these down, except for this image right here that is actually smaller. So we're going to have to take a look at scaling this one up. But all the rest of these are larger, so scaling down, again, is never a problem. Scaling up is when you can get into issues. So we'll have to look at this one very closely and evaluate if this is an image that we feel that we can actually use. Because 612, that's about twice, so it's like a 50% increase in the scale, so we'll see how that one holds up. The rest of these, we already know we have plenty of pixels and we can scale down, no problem. So let's start with the first one. So I'm going to select the first image, and it's already loaded in here, so I'm going to go to the Effects Control tab, and I'm going to click right here because it gave me the master. I want to be in this one. And I'm going to start with the scale, and let's just start sliding down and see where we get with this. Scale, scale, scale. Wow, tons of pixels. Okay, there we go. Now we're getting in the black bars, so we don't want that. So let's scale up just a smidge more. And let's see what looks good. Let's try 24. Let's see what that gives us. What does 23 look like? 23? Okay, 23. It looks like it is 23. So that's the full image. What we're going to do is we're going to do a Ken Burns, where we're going to choose where we want to start the image and where we're going to move to. I'm just going to set everything to normal, like 100%, like, well, not 100%, excuse me, where it fills the frame. I'm going to start with that. We can start making some other decisions. So there's that text there at the bottom. I want to scale that out, so I don't want to see that. So we'll start with there. Let's go over to the next image. Select, and I'm going to scale down just to kind of see what it looks like and see what we got. So there we go. Here. And here. Let's scale down, see what we have. Okay, so this one is a vertical image, so I'm going to go up. And as I'm looking at these, I'm kind of getting some ideas of how I think I'm going to do my Ken Burns effect, but I'll share in just a moment. Okay, and then this one, this is the one that's going to have to be scaled way up, so it's probably like a, yeah, that's even, That's pretty extreme. So let's go, instead of to fit, let's go look at 100% and see how we're holding up here. All right, so can you see this, that we're getting some pixelation and some distortion in that image. Now let's go to one of the other examples of this one and go to, yeah, 100% on that looks crystal clear, looks totally fine. That looks totally fine. This image is a lower resolution and lower quality. I'll leave it in for this example, but if this were a project I were working on, unless the client were really committed to this image, I would probably find another one, because you can see it's not actually that great to begin with. It's very low quality, even though the resolution is high, that it doesn't look exactly sharp, and it's got some issues. That looks fine to me. So I think this one, this is an example of when scaling up does not go according to plan. That for this one, I think I'm actually just going to say goodbye to that one. I'm just going to hit the delete key and say it wasn't the greatest image to start with anyway. Yes, we did scale up, but it just doesn't hold up that well. All right, so I'm going to go back to fit here. And let's take a look at what we have so far. Nothing wrong with these, right? Like, you could watch this. It's okay. You have somebody talking underneath this about the animals and how it's not the best situation for them and it's not an ideal place for them to be. You could watch it. It's not bad, but we can do better. So let's start with this one. So I'm actually going to scale up some more. So we have it 23. I'm going to scale up, kind of start here. And what I'm thinking, and now that I looked at this image, I think what we're going to do is I'm going to scale up and I'm going to start kind of right in here. And this is going to be my original, like my image number 1. And I'm going to start here and I'm going to have it scale and zoom out this way. So I'm going to start in kind of right here where I'm zoomed into this area. And then I'm going to have it, the scaling to go down and the positioning to move to where we get more of this wider picture. So that'll make sense in just a second. I'm just going to do it and you'll see what I'm doing. So we're going to do some fancy keyframing here. So I'm going to just start with my positioning number 1, my opening shot of where I want this to be. And I'm just moving my positioning sliders around. I'm going to start kind of right in here. I don't want any of the black to show. Let's see how much further we can go this way. So I'm going to start here, I believe. And now I'm keyframing 2 elements. I'm doing position and scale. And so I have these 2. This is my starting point here. And I did not put this at the beginning of the project. Shame on me. All right, let me back that up. And then I'm going to start. I'm just going to click on those guys and scoot them back, because I wasn't paying attention. And now let me go to the end of this photo. I'm going to go up and down arrow keys move me to the last frame. All right, and now that's actually got me into the next one. So I'm going to do left arrow key. There we go, very last frame of this one. And I'm going to do 2 more keyframes. And now I'm going to decide what my final shot is going to be. That I'm going to zoom out and zoom down. Whoops, move over. And so I'm going to try that. Let's see how that looks. Now let's play it back and see. And that's a Ken Burns effect. So much more dynamic. So much more dynamic than what we had before. It's starting to have some life to these images and a little bit more drama. Lovely. Okay, now let's take a look at this guy. So I'm going to select it, and it's also nice too to kind of go back and forth. So here we started where we were zooming out. So I think for I'm going to do the reverse here, that we're going to start with the wide and then we're going to work our way in. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to do a positioning and scale keyframe, and I'm going to go all the way to the end, very last frame. So again, left and right arrow keys to move you 1 frame at a time. And here we're going to do our next keyframes. And for here, I'm going to zoom in and slide my position sliders up and down. We're going to end kind of right there with the dog, I believe. So let's take a look at that and check it and make sure it looks okay. But again, we're going to work we're zooming out, zoom out, flip to the dog, zooming in. And it's nice to have these kind of go back and forth. Zooming in, and there we go. That was going in. And so now we're going to start with the zoom. We're already zoomed in. We're going to go outwards. Okay, and let's select this next image and start with our position and scale. And we're going to start by, we're already zoomed in here, and I'm going to slide these guys up. I'm going to start with this shot. And again, I'm not just leaving it where it falls when I'm doing the scaling. Like I'm choosing my shot here. Like I'm really thinking about composition and framing. And I'm thinking about all these other elements that we talked about. See, I like this 5. I want it to fall right in that nice corner right there. And like this feels compositionally sound. And now I'm going to go to the last frame. Oops, there you go, last frame. Add some more keyframes, and I'm going to scale out. We're going to work our way out here, and then down, down, and scoot over. So I'm making decisions of compositionally what looks the best to me, and I think that looks pretty darn good. So let's go back here. So we're working our way in, and then we're working our way out. Oop, and then last one here. And so we're going, what are we doing? We're going out here. So we're going to go, from here we're going to go wide to working our way in. And this one we may have to do a little bit differently just because it's a vertical image. But I think from this one we may just start from, let's see, can we go up even further? I don't, you know, it's one of those things that is subjective. You just kind of got to play with it and see what aesthetically makes sense and how it works the best. But no black bars. That's the one big no-no we want to avoid. So I think maybe we'll start low and we'll just kind of come up. That's going to be our plan here. Yeah, let's kind of go up from to the side. Okay, let's go to the first frame. And if I don't like it when I play it all together, then I can go back in and tweak and make changes. Last frame. Oops, keyframe here, and next one, and let's move it down. Oops, not that way. I have that here, and let's see what that looks like. I kind of want to see the dog's eye a little bit sooner. I think so. For down here, we're gonna, this last frame. And again, I know when I'm over the keyframe because the blue, I get the 2 little blue dots. If not, I'm just making more keyframes. I'm gonna make a mess. All right, so we're gonna have that get there a little bit sooner, I think. Maybe we'll do the scale out too. Let's try that. Yeah, not bad. Okay, so that's how you do a Ken Burns effect. That's how you animate still images. The principle applies for a video as well. So this is how we do a Ken Burns and effect on still images. And if I wanted to, for a little bit of extra drama, that this is when a traditional edit that, so I'm selecting the spaces in between and I'm doing shift select. And then if I want to do a command D, that puts a cross dissolve between each one of those. And now watch, this adds a little bit of a cross dissolve in between. In a normal edit, we just do straight cuts. Now we have a little bit of a stutter right there that I want to work out. I'm sure you can see that. There's a little bit of a stutter in between those. Whoops, I'm going to do it this way. That, oops, I got to scale in a little more. And I'm going to take this cross dissolve and I'm going to make it a little larger and we'll see if we fix that stutter. Let's go the other way then. Let's make it shorter. Well, all right, so what that means is I'm going to have to go in and do some more work in the keyframing to fix that. All right, fine. So it's going to make me work for it a little bit, but that's okay because like I said, I won't edit out the mistakes because what happens is you're going to see how I can fix this stuff. So let me pick the cross dissolve. I'm going to delete it. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of trickery here. Now let's try this. That I'm going to extend these a little bit beyond one another, and then I'm going to shift and select these, Shift D. All right, let's try it now to where there's a little bit of overlap between the two. Let's try it now. All right, not quite enough. Let's back it up. Not quite enough yet. Why am I still getting that? It's a wonderful thing with video editing. Sometimes I run into these problems too, and I have to sit here and think about it. Like, why am I getting this problem? How do I fix this? Okay, let's see. Think for a second. That one is over top of that one. That one is that issue. Okay, here. Well, let's just go back and play with the keyframing then. There we go. Okay, that's what it looks like it was, that I'm just going to have to go back in here and adjust my keyframes a bit. So that's happening at a different point in the cross dissolve, I think is what the problem was. There we go. So I'm just going to find that, move it to a different point in the cross dissolve. Does that fix it? Yes, it does. Okay, silly enough. Sometimes it's just those things. It's like going in and trying to find it. I hope that's not terribly annoying to you guys and that's actually helpful in terms of watching how to solve problems like this. I don't want to bore anybody, but at the same time, I don't want you to run into these problems later and you're scratching your head. And we're trying to describe problems via email, which can sometimes be very tricky. All right, so I don't see it with us. Anyway, so if you're having that problem, what you do is I did try it this way. I was kind of doing this different kind of a way of stacking these things one on top of the other. That is a trick that you can use, and then I went in and just moved the keyframes around just a little bit so I don't have that particular issue. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing that I wanted to talk about, how to use the same effect to create a fake zoom. So this is the first shot. I'm going to mute it. So this is the first shot in interview with this woman who's a Greyhound person. And it looks like they did a nice slow zoom. But that is total trickery. That this is the original shot. That's actually a keyframe effect. So this is a nice thing that you can do to create some more dynamic shots if you just did a steady cam the whole time, which nothing wrong with that. If you do not have the right kind of a tripod and you don't have a really the right equipment, better to shoot something like this, and then in post we can create that nice slow zoom. So what I did here is I have this video clip selected and I chose where I want to have the beginning of this slow zoom. I put it about halfway. And I forgot to turn these back off. I deleted the keyframes, but I didn't turn these back off. So yours is going to look something like that. And what you're going to do is you're going to just turn on the positioning and scale keyframe. And then we're going to come down to the end here. And again, I didn't change anything yet. This is still at 100 in the original position. Come down to the last frame. Left arrow key. There we go. Excuse me. And I'm going to make another one. And I'm just going to take the shot and I'm going to scale it up. And then I'm going to bump it down. Whoops, not that way. I'm going to set reset on that guy. Because I just want this, I want this axis, I don't want the other one. And I actually might scale up a little bit more because I don't know if I want to get just the dog's eyeball. So I'm still paying attention to composition here. Alright, so let's take a look at that, see how it looks. Not bad. Okay, so you get the general idea, and if I wanted to have that come in sooner, I could. I would just choose both of those things and have them line up, and can kind of move those around a bit and play with them. These should be very slow keyframes. I know with those effects that we were doing before, that we were doing things very quickly, but this is not the kind of stuff that you want to do quick. You want it to be nice, slow. Like that's too quick, I think. It starts to feel a little amateur camera person kind of a feel to it. So pay attention to the difference when it happens very slowly. Much more smooth, much more controlled. Very nice. Okay, so keyframing on the kind of whiz boom pow thing we were doing for the commercials, those are very quick. This kind of a keyframing work is very kind of slow, gradual. It's dynamic to your eye, but you don't want to give people whiplash. So that's the basics of Ken Burns and how to do these kind of pans and zooms in post.